All right. Apologize for the delays there. I pushed this back a little, about 10, 15 minutes. We were working on some stuff in the back end, but all my stuff is up for the Xfinity race. This is being streamed live on the PayDirt YouTube, my personal YouTube, and the True DFS YouTube. The race tomorrow will be added to the main PayDirt X account and stuff while we get all the information out there. That's the fact that, True DFS merged with PayDirt at the beginning of February. If you have an active True DFS subscription, you have that subscription is live until the end of the February month. You've already been notified through emails and notifications about how everything's going on there with the two companies merging. If you have not been a part of True DFS or PayDirt before, there is a link in the description, or not a link, there is a link, but there is a code in the description below of any of these videos. PayDirt Welcome, you get 50% off your first month. If you are a current True DFS subscriber, you've already been informed that you can get a free month of PayDirt. If you've contacted us, for the most part, this is just housekeeping that things are already, or that people are aware of already. I'm just getting it out there. We're talking about Xfinity today. For this race, I'm probably going to be live for around 20 minutes. Now, selfishly, okay, I really like watching these idiots in ARCA race, so I'd like to watch a good portion of this race. I don't want to miss too much. I have it open in my second screen here, but that's kind of why this will probably be a shorter stream, and I didn't want to do this in between Cup Series practice and stuff. I'd rather work on the 500 data and stuff there. So let's kind of just get into it. Yet again, there's nothing really being shown on the screen. All of the stuff is behind the paywall on PayDirt. I do need to upload the projections through TreeFS, so they add to those who still have that with SaberSim. But when we're looking at this race here now, for those of you that are new, obviously yesterday, is a pretty good example and of how to approach these races to where typically you want to just be under ownership, or you want to be under value. Now, they did not wreck like I thought they would. I mean, congratulations for Hocevar bringing out 3 self spins on his own. They did not wreck. However, we still had major chalk run into issues, and specifically Lane Riggs, who was the highest owned driver, blew a tire and went down and got destroyed. And if you played literally anybody else other than Lane Riggs in the back of the field, you outscored those portions of lineups by default. Jason White and Lane Riggs, those two. I'm pretty sure Jason White ended up outscoring Lane Riggs because Jason White started last and stuff. And so you're typically wanting to just obviously get off of ownership. Now, in Xfinity, and I'm looking at this from the approach of maybe you're new to this, you've never watched one of these Xfinity Series races before, and yet again, I have that plate racing playlist that has 6 to 12 hours of me going through data to support this if you want to know stuff in great detail. But for the most part, there's usually not as many good cars and good drivers in these races starting on the back of the field. So like today, ownership is probably going to be dictated in the back of the field by past results on the tracks and not necessarily who's in a good car or pricing or anything like that. And we don't really have, as I say, we don't really have any good drivers. The only good drivers in the back of this field from 20th on back is Hocevar, Harrison Burton, Nick Sanchez, right? Those are good drivers and good cars. Everybody else back there qualified because they're in slower cars and they're, worse drivers. And so their ownership is now dictated by how they have finished in these races. Those drivers being, Kyle Sieg, Josh Bilicki, Ryan Ellis, Williams, Jeremy Clements, those guys are probably going to carry ownership, probably not to the same extent of 50% as we've seen in yesterday's race to people, but that's where the ownership should come in at or fall in line for those drivers. One thing that we see a lot of, and yet again, DFS is really paying attention to what your opponents are doing, how are they building, so on and so forth. And so the thing that happens a lot in these races is that even though, now it has happened more in Xfinity tends to go green more. People tend to finish where they should, okay? If we build around, or, last night, for example, We identified people like Nemechek up front. We identified, I mean, a lot of the chalk plays. I mean, even Lane Riggs, Carson Hocevar, these guys who ran into issues in the race. Where were they when they had those issues? They were in the top 10 during those times. Okay, good drivers, running up front. Who tends to be involved in wrecks if there's wrecks up front? All the good drivers, right? So it's literally what crossroads ends up happening. Do they wreck or do they not wreck? If they wreck, they're probably taking out the good drivers. If they don't wreck, the good drivers are probably finishing up front. Okay, so like today, who are the good drivers that we're most likely going to see dominate the top 10 all day? That's Austin Hill, Jesse Love, Taylor Gray, the junior motorsports drivers, the Joe Gibbs drivers and stuff, in addition to Nick Sanchez, in addition to Hocevar, in addition to Harrison Burton. Like that's your pretty much your running order for the top 10. Okay. So based on like mean projections, based on lineups being constructed, you're probably going to see naturally more lineups have, possibly one or two drivers starting inside the top 20 in this event. That ownership is probably going to migrate towards Justin Allgaier, Taylor Gray, Brandon Jones, Austin Hill, Jesse Love. So when we're kind of having an idea of where the field is going to be building and where the chalk plays are, even though they might not be pushing 50-40% or whatever, we're probably looking at Kyle Sieg, Balicki, Josh Williams, Green, Clements, Sanchez, Burton, Hocevar, Jones, Allgaier, and then I think it's probably Austin Hill or Jesse Love is like your 11th or so most owned guy. Okay, so how do you approach this race? Okay, I would want to be. I don't anticipate really seeing anybody pushing 50% ownership, but you probably want to be underweight those guys in your own exposures. Now I'm playing 150. I'm okay, having 25% of each of those guys, maybe 20%, right? But for the most part, I want to be well over the field on everybody around those people in their starting positions, right? So like people that make great sense to me: Retzloff, Cesar Mozzarella, Brennan Poole has a really good track history and chance of surviving and stuff. So he might be that 12th driver on that ownership. But people that I like, Retzloff, Caesar, Brennan Poole, Luke Fenhouse, Ryan Ellis, Natalie Decker, LeVar Scott. Now Carson Ware blew his motor or transmission leaving pit lane. Now they have a long time to get this car fixed. Let me see. ARC is still under a commercial right now. Now they have a long time to get that car repaired, so I'm not. It's the old, these guys bought the old Leland Honeyman machine. Typically Carson Ware, because he is the son of Rick Ware, okay, and like people get really pissed off at guys like buying rides now. Like, I don't know, that's just society now. Like, people have some people have money, some people don't have money. You can't bitch and moan about that anymore. Like, that's just how it is. But Carson Ware, typically, if he's running in anything, has a lot of money behind him, whether it's the oil company that he is sponsored by, the Quick Change, whatever, or Jacob Companies, one of his father's companies behind him. He normally comes with money. So he's usually never in a terrible vehicle. They have 5 hours to get a new engine / motor / transmission, whatever, into that car. Okay? In professional motorsports, that is plenty of time. You have a crew of like 8, 9 idiots working on this car. I would not be concerned about Carson Ware in this race with them fixing everything. With that said, you're gonna have to keep updated on X, Twitter, Instagram. Do they tweet anything? Does anybody know if these guys know how to hold a wrench? Right, that's the only asterisk around Carson Ware. But I like Carson Ware. I like LeVar. I like Natalie Decker. I like Ellis. All the guys I was just mentioning there. Those are the people that I'm probably going to focus on. Now, a major thing for DFS is that, especially for Xfinity, if or not if. I mean, every race is decided on the last lap, clearly. But NASCAR as a sport is a DFS sport that I would highly encourage everybody following how their lineups are performing in real time, especially on, I was going to say these plate races in general, but on any race. This isn't just, you're a gambling gooner and you're just watching, the green go up or down or whatever, right? If you're watching the race and correlating that with how your specific lineups are performing, especially in a race to where you are getting off of where a majority of the ownership is, or a majority of lineups that are being built are, you are able to more easily track how races break down, how slates break down. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you're using my stuff or my approach and everything, it's probably going to give you, yet again, we went over it yesterday with, I build projections around where people should finish, right? Where are people supposed to finish? Who are the good drivers in those situations? That's Burton, that's Sanchez, that's Jones, that's Allgaier, that's Austin Hill, Jesse Love, whatever. It's going to show you the guys who should perform well if this race goes green. And if this race goes green, those lineups should perform very well. This is a plate race. Those drivers who should perform very well are at the very highest point of the volatility scale in terms of being involved in a crash. Okay, so if those lineups that project to do well run into a race to where there's a lot of wrecks, it's most likely those lineups are specifically the ones being taken out in chaos, right? So on these races specifically, I personally do not want to even be sniffing any money literally until 20 to go. And I don't want to be sniffing any money until there's wrecks, until there's things going on. Specifically yesterday, right? I was cashing for like fucking zero yesterday, right? Until the last bit of the race where Lane Riggs ran into issue. That was a big chunk of the ownership gone. And then we had several guys who ran in the top 10 all day, favorites to win the race, get spun, which like really NASCAR, no yellow being spun, but they spin out of 2 or out of 4 coming to the white flag. That was a big chunk of ownership being taken out by guys who were going to compete to be optimal. Micah McDowell was realistically going to be an optimal driver, and then he gets taken out literally at the very end, right? So I just like to build specifically for when the high owned guys run issue and spin out. Good morning, Andy. Good morning, Andrew. Mike, exposures for anybody only playing drivers 19 and back. I would probably do it from 17th on back. If you're doing probably a smaller pool, I'd probably be pretty low on Hocevar and Sanchez. Everybody else, I'm fine at least getting 10-15% of. I've mentioned the drivers that I really like already. Those are drivers that I will probably have near 40 or 45 or 50%. 20 max, who would you lock? I would lock nobody. I don't think if I was running 20 max, I would have anybody over 60%. I think your locks or your highest owned guys should not be Harrison Burton, Nicholas Sanchez, Jeremy Clements. If it's anybody else, I'm fine with that. In 20 lineups, I would want 12 lineups max of one individual driver. I don't think. Secondly, because we have so many bad people in the back here, right? It's like we don't really need to get like I like Ellis today, right? We don't need to have 65% Ellis today because ownership doesn't dictate that type of aggressive builds, right? Ownership on this slate will take care of itself. To having dead money play Austin Hill or Jesse Love or play more guys in the top 15 than normal. So I don't think we necessarily have to worry about that. But yeah, that's and I was answering this question here regarding 20 max. So where is the ARCA race here? Have they started? So they are on lap 1 of the ARCA race with a gigantic 40-car field. This is probably my favorite race of the entire year because these guys are bad. They're trying to wreck already. I'm not going to keep it up here, but look, I'm just saying. I don't know why. What the fuck happened to the rest of the field? I missed the start here. If you aren't watching sports through like with your friends, I don't know what you're doing, dog. I don't have what's a good global max. What's a good global max for 20 max? Probably 60%, 60, 65. That's the, if answering the specific question, 65 is the max that I would have of any individuals. I mean, it's a plate race. It's it's Daytona. Very similar to yesterday. We talked ad nauseum. We'll have a very long show tomorrow regarding the 500, specifically talking about ownership. But I mean, I think that's mainly it. All my stuff is up on the site. There's no further changes being made. I like where everything's at, so that's where I'm at. And that's mainly going to be it. I'll see you guys. Oh, wait. We're getting a replay. What all happened here? So we're racing silly. We're trying to die right off the bat. Interesting. Cool. Anyway, yeah. See you guys later. Thank you for being here, and bye bye. Thanks for watching my stuff. See ya.